Let's take a look at this question. Here we want to write a program to check if a number is a special number or not. A special number is a number which is equal to the sum of the factorials of the digits of the number. So if I take a number like 145, the factorial of the first digit 1 is 1, the factorial of the second digit 4 is 24, and the factorial of 5 is just 120. 120 plus 24 plus 1 is going to give us 145 again. The sum of the factorials of the digits of the number is equal to the original number. So that's why we can call 145 a special number. Now this looks a bit hard, but it's actually pretty simple. We'll first identify exactly what we need to do in this program. The first thing is we'll obviously need to take the number as input. Now once I have the number, I'm gonna just take each digit of the number. And we can easily do this using a loop. We already know how to do this. Once we take each digit, in every single iteration, we're gonna have a particular digit of the number. In this loop, whenever we take each digit, we want to find the factorial of the digit. Remember, we're trying to add the factorials of the digits of the number. So for each digit that you're taking, you're going to be finding the factorial of that digit. And then using something like a count variable, I can just add the factorial or the factorials of all digits. Inside my loop, I'm just taking every single digit, I'm finding the factorial of each digit, and I'm adding the factorials of all the digits. Then outside my loop, if this variable count storing the sum of the factorials is equal to the number, it would be a special number. So we can just display that the number is a special number. If it isn't, so if this condition is false, we're going to use an else statement and we're just going to print that it's not a special number. Since we already know how to take each digit, and since we already know how to find a factorial of a particular number and add all of these numbers in something like a counter variable, this should be a pretty easy program. The first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to take the number as input. To do this, I'm just going to use the scanner class. So we're going to first create the object of the scanner class, and I'm going to call this object SA. And once I make this object, I'm going to ask the user to enter the number. I'm going to say enter the number. Once the user enters the number, I'll have to store this in a variable. Since this number has to be an integer, I'll make an int variable called number. I'll set this equal to sa.nextInt. Using this nextInt method, I'm taking the input from the user and I'm storing it in this variable called number. So with that, we're done with our first step. We took the number as input and we stored it in this variable called number. We already know how to do this. We can just use a while loop. So I'm just going to say that while this number is greater than 0, we're going to take each digit using the modulus operator. So I'm going to say int digit is equal to number modulus 10. This is going to give me every digit, and I'll have to obviously change the number. So number is equal to number by 10. And this is going to give me every single digit. And we can see that for every single digit, we want to find out the factorial of the digit. So here in my while loop, where I'm taking every single digit, I'm going to find a factorial of this digit. So I'm going to find a factorial inside this while loop. So inside the while loop, I'm going to find a factorial of the variable digit. To do this, I'm going to first create a variable called factorial, and I'm going to set this equal to 1. This is going to be storing the factorial of the digit. We already know how to take a factorial. We're going to use a for loop in this case. We're going to initialize my iterator called I to the variable digit, and I'm going to set my condition as I is greater than or equal to 1. And in my update, I'm just decreasing the value of I by 1. Inside this for loop, we're just going to multiply factorial with I. So every single iteration, I'm just multiplying every value of I so that I can find the factorial of the number. By the time I complete executing this for loop, I can find the factorial of this digit. Now that I have the factorial of the digit, I need to find a sum of the factorial of the digits. To do this, we can just use a count variable. So I'm going to set count to 0. In this case, I'm putting this statement outside my while loop. Because if I take it and if I put it in my while loop, it's just going to reset count to 0. Count has to keep increasing. It has to keep adding the factorial values. It has to keep adding the factorial of the digits. So this variable has to be initialized outside my while loop. Once I initialize it to 0, inside my while loop, after I take the factorial of the digit, I'm going to add the factorial to this variable count. By the time I complete executing this while loop, I should have found the sum of the factorial of all digits of this number. So now we're done with our second step as well. Using this while loop, we're taking every single digit of this number, and for every single digit, we're finding the factorial of the digit, and we're adding the factorial to this common variable count to find the sum of the factorials of all digits. Finally, we just need to use an if statement to check if this variable count is equal to this variable number, and if they're equal, we need to print that it's a special number. This is simple, but we have an issue. If I take this variable number in this while loop, number equals number by 10 is going to keep decreasing the variable number. We already saw that in the end, number is going to become 0 and the loop is going to stop executing. So because of this while loop, I've lost the value of number. What I'm going to do to fix this is I'm going to make a copy variable, and I've got this number 2, and I'll set this to number, and inside my while loop, instead of using number, I'll use this variable number 2. When I do this, you notice that the value that I'm calculating for the sum of factorials is not changing. Number 2 is equal to number. But now if I want to use this if statement, I still have the value of this number variable. So after this, I can just use my if statement, and I can check if count is equal to number. If count is equal to number, we're gonna print that it's a special number. So we're gonna add a println statement, and we're gonna print that it's a special number. Now if count is not equal to number, we're gonna use an else statement, and we're just gonna print that it is not a special number. And with that, we're done with our third and final step as well. If you notice, all we did is identify the main steps of the program and translate from this simple English to this program over here. Now we'll just run this program, and you can see that it asks me to enter the number. We'll enter 145 because we already know that it's a special number. When I click enter, it does print that it's a special number. Let's enter a different value now. Maybe we'll try something like 11. 1 factorial plus 1 factorial is just 2. So this is not a special number because 2 is not equal to 11. When I click enter, it does print that it's not a special number. So our program works perfectly well.